Speculation is still flying about what's going on with Big Thunder Mountain and the destruction of one of the most beautiful landscapes within Magic Kingdom. However, a new rumor out of WDW Pro says that Disney was not prepared for the backlash to their announcement. Could that inspire a change? Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is theme park aficionado, Mr. VashSky. Are you ready to aficionado us today, sir?
I believe I am ready to aficionado you today.
So that sounds a lot less weird if you say it's just everybody. If it's just me, that's awkward. All right, with that being said, let's talk about this article out of Mickey Blog here. A closer look at the marginally unsuitable land for Beyond Big Thunder Mountain project at Magic Kingdom. This is actually a really, really good article, and I want to point people to it. This by Mike. We're finally on the precipice of shovels in the ground at Walt Disney World. Citation needed. Actually, a permit needed. A blue sky session at the 2022 D23 Expo was met with grumbling from the fan community, but at the recent 2024 D23 Fan Expo. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. By the way, they do have permits. I was just joking around. Disney Experiences Chairman Josh D'Amaro outlined an ambitious slate of projects for Walt Disney World, noting that Disney will be building everything announced. Oh, wow. That hurts my head to think about that he actually did say that. It just kind of rushed by in the flurry of announcements there. Mm-hmm. He said that everything was in active development. And when he was referring to Big Thunder Mountain, he said that dirt was currently moving. That's a paraphrase, not an exact quote, but he did say dirt was moving. Vash, you want to clarify that just so everybody knows that I'm not misinterpreting Josh D'Amaro's words?
No. He said that, Bruce Vaughn has said this is, shovels in the ground. And I believe Josh D'Amaro, after talking about Villains Land, said that dirt was moving on the project. And, well, as Mike from Blog Mickey beautifully points out, ain't no dirt moving. Trees still there. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Obviously, these things have been in the development process for quite some time. We got, I think, 3 pieces of very detailed specific concept art on the day that this was announced at the D23 Expo during the Experiences Showcase. And then 2 days after the event had already concluded, we get another outlining exactly where this Cars portion of the project, where it was actually going to go. So, I mean, that would indicate to me that these things have been moved some ways along. The fact, though, is that they really haven't had shovels hit dirt yet.
I think that's the general gist of this article here, but this also talks about the marginally unsuitable land that is here. So it says, first, here's a look at the permit so we can get our bearings a bit on what we're looking at, because I'll be real honest, the on-the-ground photos are less than captivating. At the moment, in the screenshot below, we can see 3 areas of interest outlined in teal. That is the greenish, bluish color here, mostly green. Those are construction laydown yards that will be built over the next few months, otherwise known as a construction umbilicus. They're already working on one of those at Topical Americas. That's the official That Park Place name for that land. Also, I'm pointing out that one currently has motion. This one does not, and yet Josh D'Amaro presented this one as coming more quickly than the one that's going on at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Another reason that we're highly suspicious of the timeline on this one right here. These are areas where material and equipment will be staged as work in the Rivers of America area goes from draining to demolition to backfill. Oh, that just hurts my heart to think about that right there. Yes, they will be draining. It is a man-made lake here. There is a dry dock over here. That dry dock, by the way, is that capable of clearing out all of the water in the Rivers of America?
Usually these things are apportioned to a specific area, so I don't think it's built to get rid of all the water. I will say that is kind of an area of concern, from what I understand, that you do affect the waterways, because all of these are connected to Seven Seas Lagoon, Bay Lake, and so forth. you do kind of affect the waterways in a big way when you talk about getting rid of such a large body of water as in Rivers of America. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how they contend with that issue going forward.
I'll also point out that when you have a connected waterway in Florida, you invariably encounter wildlife. So I don't know what the environmental impact is here, or if the fact that it is a man-made river makes that less of an environmental impact as far as the permitting goes. I do see some areas where they might get pushback from regulatory agencies here if they're getting rid of a waterway in Florida that is connected. Essentially, everything is connected here to Seven Seas Lagoon. And despite what people say about Disney's patrolling of that area for wildlife, Disney has always patrolled this area for wildlife, which indicates that it is an active habitat in some ways. I know that there are some people who will take that as, oh, well, we need to put some kind of prohibition here to protect the wildlife. I'm not thinking that's what needs to be done here. Let's continue, though. The teal laydown yard closest to Rivers of America is what we're going to take a look at today. In the 10-year plan outlined by CIFTOD, this area was called marginally unsuitable for development. There it is, the quote of the day. In total, there are 1,371 acres in this category, or 13% of the undeveloped land in the district. I'm assuming that's not, they're not saying that this is 1,300 acres right here. I think they're saying that that's a large amount in the district altogether. Vash, would you say that's accurate?
I believe that's accurate, yes. From what we understand, there are thousands of acres that are unsuitable, let's say. Marginally unsuitable probably is the correct term for that. There have been thousands of acres set aside for wildlife purposes and environmental reasons and so forth. So, just because you see all that land, just because, you hear quotes of twice the size of the island of Manhattan, doesn't mean that all of it is actually buildable. I think we know that from experience here. However, we have to think that the area beyond Big Thunder is at least a little bit more buildable, if not for a great effort in order to make it buildable, than what is being implied. A lot of people have been questioning why exactly Rivers of America has to go away in order to make these new expansions a reality. It is quite strange when you look at Magic Kingdom and all the areas that could be used for expansion.
Right, and this is a river that appears large. Well, it is large. If you look at the perspective, just looking at the walkways in the central area of Magic Kingdom Park, where you would be looking up into the castle, no one would call that area small. The only time that it's small is when it's packed with people looking at fireworks. But if you get lost in that area, you can't just shout and everyone will know where you are. It's large enough that you could lose a person. And if you look at the Rivers of America, obviously that is a very large bit of the map here. And yes, Vash, you did say something that I think we probably should talk about, why it is that they would choose this area, other than the perceived reason, which is malice towards anything beautiful, and I think maybe there's a little bit in there, whether or not they realize it. They are going to be destroying something beautiful and replacing it with a living cartoon cars themed area. So, just bear that on your conscience, Imagineers, as you're looking at demolishing this beautiful landmark that, yes, is from Walt. There are reasons that they might be thinking about getting rid of the Rivers of America other than just space issues. I think you might have a good tweet on that, Vash.
Yes, I do. I want to go ahead and direct your attention towards, I don't know if you would consider him an Imagineer or an executive, but a analyst and professor of theme parks is what this gentleman goes by. Bill Zenetti actually had a very, very long and in-depth tweet just about everything surrounding this project, at least from his point of view. He does speak as if he was privy to maybe some conversations and so forth. Maybe he was attached to this project in some way that we don't actually know about, but he does speak very knowledgeable of all the happenings, at least according to him, behind the scenes of what's going on here. And apparently this, in his words, this decision wasn't taken lightly. I guess a number of executives and Imagineers toured the river on the Liberty Belle multiple times, or analyzed, I should say, whether it was suitable for expansion expansion, whether it was suitable to rehab the river. Apparently, the river is in, it requires some maintenance that must be undertaken. And apparently, they don't want to actually go through that cost, or at least it would be cost prohibitive in which to do that. Also, too, we have to think that the Liberty Bell itself needs regular maintenance. And so it's like, okay, well, is it better to kind of get rid of these things and open up a huge landmass for development? Apparently, in his view, he was suggesting that you couldn't necessarily get back there without having undertaken this process. Which
right. Let's go to that. Let's go to that third paragraph specifically. And
Please.
you know, none of this is verifiable, but it does seem reasonable. There are some reasons that I would push back at some of his conclusions here. One of the key drivers of this redo was requested by the park management itself. I do believe that to eliminate dead ends that can't be accomplished while retaining the navigable river system. So you have an aging river basin in dire need of resurfacing, logistical nightmares to improve the island's dead end pathways on two sides. Plus, access must be created to get to the other side of the river systems for any expansion. Now, here's where I'm going to push back slightly here. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's insincere or anything like that. Disney's Hollywood Studios very specifically comes to mind as a park that has many dead ends in it right now. Maybe they're trying to get rid of dead ends. It doesn't seem like that would actually be a high priority for the Walt Disney Company. The Sunset Boulevard area of Hollywood Studios, obviously that ends at, well, you think it ends at Tower of Terror. I think it actually ends at a Cars attraction of some kind. Also, Fantasmic is down there. Of course, the Muppets area right now is essentially a dead end. I might even refer to it as a very nice crevice there. And no disrespect to the Muppets. I'm not the one who constructed it that way. And of course, Galaxy's Edge is a intellectual property dead end that they have just sitting there like a vestigial toe that they don't know what to do with.
Well, I can understand a little bit about dead ends, right? You never want dead ends in your theme park because when people have to double back now, it's a pathway that now has to play double duty for people to backtrack and so forth. I understand operationally why you wouldn't want that. It is the ideal, but to prioritize it to this extent where you're actually going to get rid of the river. And here's the thing, Jonas. I don't know. I must be a Disneylander, and I don't know. Perhaps I was born yesterday, but I seem to recall that Disneyland itself went through a similar process in that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was added to the back end of Rivers of America at great extent and great expense. In that case, they had to relocate a huge host of backstage areas. For example, the ranch that used to be back there, that used to hold all the horses and so forth for the stagecoaches on Main Street. Well, now they had to be shipped in because those ranches are now off-site. They had to be shipped in every single day in order to make that attraction possible at the front of the park. So this idea that this stuff can't be done, we just can't do it, it's logistically a nightmare and all that. Come on, didn't Walt Disney himself say it's kind of fun to do the impossible?
Right. And that's a very good point. Now, I will say that I don't think that Bill Zenetti is being insincere here. I can see management having this idea here. Also, there is something nice about the long walk between Haunted Mansion and Frontierland, despite the fact that they're essentially right next to each other. I think you're closer. I'm trying to think the distance between Small World and Haunted Mansion is not that far compared to the distance between Big Thunder Mountain and Haunted Mansion. Now, somebody will tell me, as the crow flies, it's actually very close. These things are actually really, really close to each other is what I'm trying to say here. And that distance, that perceived distance, some might call it a forced perspective, is actually something that helps the park and makes it feel larger here. I do see the problem with the resurfacing of the Rivers of America and the foundation issues there, that they are going to have to fill it in with concrete if they're going to try to build anything here. I don't know what that says about Tom Sawyer Island. I know that they did have concept art for a Tiana's Palace over there on Tom Sawyer Island, but they decided that they had to get rid of Splash Mountain. The decision to get rid of Splash Mountain trumped the idea of where that Tiana area might go in the park there, and they just sandwiched them together. The thing that I really want to point out here is I think that these are all avoidable decisions for the Walt Disney Company at this point. They could refinish the Rivers of America, but I think they hate to put money into something that is not going to bring a new IP into the park.
Well, speaking of avoidable decisions, we'll have a link to this tweet, by the way, that you see on your screen in the description down below so that you can read it for yourself because it is a very fascinating read. But I want to go ahead and point you to a couple of tweets here and then we'll get into it. Disney glimpses here. I actually think there's a higher than usual probability that WDI reverts or significantly modifies the Rivers of America plan. Not saying it's super high, but I do believe it will be given a second thought. Interesting because WW Pro actually commented on this saying, I have an unverified claim from a good source that they're caught off guard by just how negative the reaction has been. Magic Kingdom actually can greatly impact the stock. I do believe that's correct.
Very true.
Well, we saw the attendance reports, didn't we, Jonas? I mean, #1 theme park in the world in 2023. If that is significantly hindered because of the loss of Rivers of America, that could mean big numbers when it comes to per caps and so forth attached to Magic Kingdom.
Right. Well, again, 70% of the revenue of the company comes from the experiences division, 30% of the revenue of the company specifically from Walt Disney World. This is this 1 quarter behind now. But now the statements by the company, they started to say that theme park attendance would be softening. And you could hear the tenor in the room. This was a phone call. This is a teleconference, and they only let people on one at a time after. But you can tell the energy from all of those calls change to say, please be more specific. We need you to provide clarity on what you mean by theme park softening. Are you talking about specific sites? Are you talking about specific quarters? How many quarters will this be going on? There was no pushback on how long Disneyland Paris would be down because I think these people understand that Disneyland Paris has never been a significant revenue driver for the company. So this was the point at which when there's an actual change in attendance and threat, per caps don't matter if no one is showing up to the park. This was the point at which Wall Street all of a sudden cared about the theme park space for the company. Okay, you've got Disney Plus, quote unquote, taken care of. You can watch other videos on the channel to understand why that's not really the case. But they said on the call it was taken care of. And now theme parks are in danger. This is another reason that Frontierland didn't move the stock price and the destruction of Frontierland didn't move the stock price. It was because they're not talking about the theory of 3 years from now and whether or not people will come back. Investors in this company, shareholders in this company want to know right now what is going to change within the next 2 quarters, the attendance problems that they indicated that they're going to be having at Walt Disney World.
And what Hugh Johnston has said, not just a couple, a few. We might be dealing with in terms of attendance problems and per caps and so forth. I want to go ahead and direct you to the last bit of information that we have right here. There's been a couple of rumors from Pro coming out about this from his sources. One source actually suggesting that perhaps, like that tweet pointed out, perhaps the backlash has impacted the Walt Disney Company to such an extent that they might reevaluate this plan. Another source saying the complete opposite, saying we don't really care. Magic Kingdom's not that kind of business, unlike Disneyland, where it has a lot of repeat visitation. Walt Disney World is really made off of the backs of people visiting once or once in 10 years and so forth. So who cares what they think? It's a very interesting strategy. We'll see if it pays off for them. Now, when you look at this map right here of this Rivers of America plan, we've been hearing rumors that maybe the middle ground is to perhaps retain the front side of the river, foregoing the back half. I think out of a bad situation like this one is, that might be the best case scenario that we could possibly hope for. But again, that assumes that the company even cares at all what is actually going on, or whether they'd be so headstrong that they just barrel right into this. I have no idea, Jonas, but it is very discouraging nonetheless.
Right. And that if they decide to just keep that circle there, you'll have the appearance of the river next to Big Thunder Mountain from that walkway down there. And we can call that Frontierland, I suppose. In this case, I would call that like a Cope donut right there. I don't know who is coping more there. If it's the fans who want that to be true, or if it's the company trying to say, no, we kept the Rivers of America, but instead it will be the donut of America here. I don't like it. It's not a river. It's a circle of water of America. I also think they're going to end up with issues if they have a stagnant waterway in the middle of the park instead of an actual waterway that is refreshed by the Seven Seas Lagoon here as well. I'm also hearing that the Liberty Belle is down for refurbishment right now. So, Talk about omens of bad times to come. That being said, we want to throw this to our commenters. What do you think about this situation? Of course, heaven forbid they should ever not fulfill what they've talked about at D23. I'll also point out this wasn't a D23 announcement. Cars Land was the D23 announcement. The destruction of Tom Sawyer Island and Rivers of America, that was announced on the Disney Parks blog, and permits are already being filed. Let us know your thoughts on all this in the comment section down below. Like this video if you like this video and you want to hear more updates on Frontierland. We're hearing from our audience and also Pro's audience that you guys want to hear everything that's going on with Frontierland. Let us know in the comments below on that specifically, of course. And of course, consider subscribing to That Park Plays for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.